Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning entertainment podcast. And in this episode, we'll be discussing the most badass dojo in the valley, Cobra Kai, with our Season 4 Spoilercast. Hi-ya! It's time to sweep the leg.
A man can't stand. You can't fight. A man can't breathe. You can't fight. A man can't see. You can't fight.
Extreme situations require extreme measures.
It never gets old. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today, my fellow co-host, Troy Heinrichs.
I mean, it's a little old. I mean, it's like almost, 40 years old at this point?
Well, I mean, a man can't breathe, can't fight. Man can't see, can't fight. I can do that whole Terry Silver thing if you want me to do that.
It's more appropriate for the season that we're on.
I suppose. You know, what's crazy is everybody literally that I know is talking about Cobra Kai, except the lame people. Except the people that just don't like fun. You know, they want to watch something very depressing and dour. They don't want to have fun with their day. Why do you think the world's in love with Cobra Kai, Troy? Why?
Because it's the one television series in the land of reboots and remakes and all the other stuff that Hollywood's been doing for the last 5 years that no one ever wanted, no one ever needed. And it's the one that actually really, really works so well. It's kind of ridiculously insane how good it actually is.
Isn't it? It's just like, it started as what I think, wasn't it a joke on How I Met Your Mother? Wasn't that like, I mean, it didn't start there, but I mean, it definitely launched it.
Yeah, the impetus was, Daniel LaRusso was the bully and Johnny had it, it was supposed to be Johnny's story the whole time. And it was like, okay, let's play with that.
So it started as like, I think it was a YouTube thing that then it got some publicity and How I Met Your Mother helped elevate it and whatnot. And got Zabka some press with it. And then it turned into this, we're going to make a show. And it's just like, what? Where Johnny's kind of trying to be this redemptive hero. And I'm like, you want us to root for that guy? And then it ended up first season, great. And it just kept getting better and better and better, which was nuts. And everyone I know is love. And I think there's a multitude of factors. It's short form, which is great because we're all tired of not everything needs to be an hour. Sometimes a half hour is a sweet spot. You can get all the good hits, literally. Right there in 30 minutes as opposed to a lot of fluff like we get in most TV shows. You've got a character who's definitely an anti-hero, but also, you keep rooting for him. You've got your standard hero who you've been rooting for since the 80s, and then you've got a bunch of kids. So you got that youth fat. It's got like every demographic in one show, I think.
And I think the best part about it is that it gives a way for families to have that cross-generational conversation. You could sit there, and in Ghostbusters Afterlife kind of did this as well, where we were talking about how you can bring your kids to see Ghostbusters Afterlife, and they're like, oh, do you want to see what the real story is all about? And you can take them and go back to those 1980s movies, and they still hold up. I think that's the key. It's not like you could go back to some piece of crap like, Phantom Menace and get people excited about it. And yes, all the Star Wars haters are now calling and sending me email.
Shade.
But the thing with 80s movies is that they were so well done. I mean, every single one of them I could think of is just like you go back to the well and you go, Ghostbusters was great. Back to the Future was great. Goonies was great. Like everything was just so good in the 80s that if we can have that renaissance now in a different way, because I think what Cobra Kai season 4 does is finally sets up Cobra Kai to be its own thing without having to rely on the past. Like we went back to Japan already in season 3. We went back to Kreese. We went back to Terry in this season. So we've covered off all the movies unless Hilary Swank shows up for some reason, because technically Pat Morita was in that movie.
Yeah.
Maybe she comes up in the next season. But Allie's been back. Mom's been back. Like we've covered the basis at this point.
Yeah. Now it's their own thing going forward. I mean, it's been they've done a really good mix, but it's definitely going to be based on, well, now the past is caught up to the present. So what's the future?
Right, exactly.
And I gotta say, man, I'm really, to me, I know we probably feel differently. We'll get into it as we talk about the season, but I was happy that they kind of redeemed Terry Silver because I thought he was way over the top in the movie, but I like Thomas Ian Griffith. I was a big fan of his movies, even though I know most people didn't see them. But yeah, I was kind of happy to see him come back, and I was waiting for a fight scene because that's the trick. He holds dual black belts. The guy can fight. You can see how tall he is. I mean, he's a huge monster compared to everybody else in the show. And I think Willie Zabka is the only other person that really has martial arts training, like came into the show with real martial arts training. And it's nice to see those two face off in a scene.
Well, except for maybe Tori from a girl's perspective, because man, Peyton List sure towered over Sam.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, all the kids, I'm saying they're all good fighters in the show. I'm just saying that come from a martial arts background. Like Billy Zabka has been doing karate training for many years. And before the show came out, after the movie, I think, but before the show. And Thomas Ethan Griffith has been a double black belt for a long time. I mean, he was going to be Steven Seagal there in the 90s for a minute.
I mean, he's got the look, right? The slick back hair.
Oh, yeah. And I thought he was a lot more charismatic than Steven Seagal ever was. Steven Seagal had the same look for literally everything that happened, no matter what. I think if he's having sex, he has the same look. It's weird. Well, here, let's briefly summate what happened in Cobra Kai Season 4. Danny and Johnny's teachings fail to blend, and their promise of a union is short-lived, breaking Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang into two dojos. Meanwhile, Kreese brings on the Karate Kid 3 villain Terry Silver to help mold his students in an effort to win the All Valley. Of course, along the way, there are dramatic turns, ridiculous fights, hilarious Johnny-isms, and so much more. But by the end, Terry Silver seizes control of Cobra Kai. Kreese is arrested for beating the hell out of Stingray. Danny and Johnny both lose at the All Valley. Tori hears the ref was paid off. Robby and Johnny reunite. Miguel is off to find his dad. And Shozen is back in play. Overall thoughts on this season as a whole. What say you, Troy? Did compared to where the other ones were, etc.?
Yeah, I think starting out of the gate, it was really captivating. You're waiting to see how Terry Silver is going to come into the picture. As the season gets into the middle of it, and this sounds like a nitpick, right? I mean, it's like 6 hours for the entire season, time wise, and by the hour 3.5, it probably has a little bit more fat this year, I would say, than previous seasons had. But by the end, you're just kind of like, you're wrapped up, man. It's like 1984 All Valley tournament all again. You can feel the energy coursing through your veins. Moment of Truth is playing on the mat. And you got just the ending is just not where I thought the ending was going to go. I was really surprised. Like, I was like, what? Oh my, what? It's like, give me season 5 now.
Which part were you what about? Because I was like, what? When Terry Silver kind of cowered to Kreese, because I'm like, that's not. I mean, Thomas Ian Griffith's a big dude. Why are you threatened by this guy? Like, honestly, that makes no sense to me. And then it came back around. I'm like, oh, he's playing him. Okay, thank God. I was hoping for it the whole time, but near the end, I didn't see it. And I'm like, oh God, please. Oh, there it is. The double cross. God bless America.
Yeah, I think I whatted when Kreese realized that he had a moment and he decided to play differently and let Tori do her own thing. I was like, okay, that's a great character change. I like that. When the ref got paid off, I was like, what? Like, that actually did happen? Like, I can't believe that's happening.
I still feel like Tori won fair and square. I still say she
was out of bounds. She was out of bounds, and that would have given Sam the win because she would have had the extra point.
I thought she fought better.
She did fight better, but
yeah,
sometimes fighting better isn't necessarily the win.
Rules, man.
It would be if it was like boxing, right? In boxing, if you hit the time limit, it depends on how many punches and blocks and whatever you threw, and that's how they score the win. If nobody gets knocked out, but not in karate. You've played this sudden death. 1 point.
It was a crazy ending. The double cross. Miguel's off on his own. He didn't finish the match. Johnny once again does say the wrong thing per usual. You'd think by season 4 he'd learn to stop saying the wrong things at those particular times, don't you think?
No, never happens.
Never. You are who you are.
You are who you are.
You are who you are. Were you at all disappointed that the promise of Daniel and Johnny working together was so short-lived? Because, I mean, if you go rewatch season 3 or listen to the season 3 Spoilercast that we had last year, at the very end, you got this badass cover of In the Air Tonight, my favorite song of all time. And you have Danny and Johnny, you got this moment and they're like, let's begin. And then the first episode's called Let's Begin. And it begins really horribly. And it's actually off the rails 30 seconds after that clip ended. And then I think 4 episodes later, they're no longer teaching together. Were you disappointed with that? Or you're like, all right, this feels natural?
No, it feels natural. And I think that that's really the great part about the show is that where the adults continue to make the same mistakes, the kids are the ones that are actually teaching the adults that, hey, there might be a better way to do things. And so that really gives the kids a chance to shine this year to say, hey, look, Like, we understand that Miyagi-Do is about defense. We understand that Eagle Fang is about offense. Sometimes, though, you do have to be on offense, because if you don't strike first, you end up basically behind the 8 ball. I mean, look at all the NFL games that happened recently over the last 2 weeks. And just, if you're not up first, it's hard to come back. And then sometimes you can come back and sometimes you don't. But if you're up first, you have a better chance of winning. So I like the inner peace. I like the stability of Miyagi-Do karate, but there is some offensive tactics that you need in order to get the upper hand on your opponent sometimes.
Yes, I do agree. I do agree with that. I felt like I would have liked to have seen them work together just a little bit more. And, you know, you say the kids learned. Robby learned a lot. I think Tori by the end was learning a lot. She was trying to grow. Sam and Anthony 2.0, though, were becoming the bullies. Like, they were reverting in a way, because the trauma and the PTSD has finally gotten to Sam to where she's a little bit excited about hurting Tori. You know, she's leaning Johnny's way while Tori's trying to come out of her way. And then you got Anthony, who's out there bullying this poor Kenny. Was it Kenny? Kenny Payne, right? Was his name?
Yeah.
Torturing this poor kid for no reason other than he's the new kid in school.
Well, and
so they reverted a little.
And I think, if anything, Anthony's arc was a little bit interesting because I think it was short-lived. I think they could have done a lot more with Anthony's arc, and maybe that's what they're saving for season 5.
Maybe.
Since the Sam and Tori will probably be best friends now and try to go find Miguel or whatever, because they both care about Miguel and blah, 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 and all this other fun stuff. It's interesting. I think Sam redeemed herself as the arc. It always happens, right? You're in the good spot, but you're like, I'm tired of being the good person. I want to be the bad person. And so she becomes a little bit of the bad person, but then she kind of redeems herself in the end.
Yeah.
So I think it all plays out the way it's supposed to play out, which I think is really, really great.
Well, we're going to go kind of, if you ever listen to the what podcast do we do? The Blacklist Exposed podcast, where we cover the Blacklist. Troy and I both do it. We're going to do it character by character. We always find that if you do it that way, it's a lot easier than going through, here's what happens in episode 1 and episode 2. And just talk about the journey. It's a lot simpler. Before we do that, just remember you can find every episode of The Hollywood Outsider on your podcast app. We're at thehollywoodoutsiders.com for the podcast reviews. You can also find The Hollywood Outsider Presents Bad Movie Night, which we just launched. You can find that on your podcast app as well. And if you want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/thehollywoodoutsiders. And if you want to email Troy for his wrongness, it's feedback@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. There you go. Bases covered. Go into arcs. Before we get into the main characters, the ancillary characters, anybody really stand out? I like Dimitri. He's always fun as a kind of supporting character. Stingray, I was not happy to see back because I just don't find his character that interesting. I kind of find him more annoying than fun, but I guess he served the final plot. Outside of that, anybody else, or any of those two or anyone else stand out for you?
Yeah, everybody else was just the everybody else kind of category this season. It didn't seem like they really added to the overall, funness of it all. I mean, because you didn't have like the big group fight like you have at the end of season 2 and the end of season 3.
Oh, those are so good. Those are so fun.
But I think Dimitri is a really interesting one to watch his growth over the course of the series, and the fact that he ends up winning his match in the All Valley tournament. I think that's a really fun thing to like have him be the voice of reason, the one that brings Hawk back around. And his character, I really enjoyed his portrayal this season. I enjoyed his acting. I enjoyed his everything about everything he did this year. And then Stingray, the problem with Stingray is I totally forgot who Stingray was. I didn't understand where is this guy? When did he try to join Cobra Kai? Who is Stingray?
You couldn't remember him, really?
No, I didn't.
Oh. Well, that goes to my point. I don't find him a very memorable character.
And I'm like, what is the purpose of him other than the prom after party, which I thought was kind of cool. Like, yeah, let's totally piss off the neighbor and then go kick his ass because the neighbor was a complete dick. The way it plays out, though, and the fact that he wants into Cobra Kai so bad, and the twist at the end, I was just like, okay, like I forgive you for being in this in this season, but don't come back next year.
Very.
I did like the and we'll probably talk about this with Anthony, but I did like the introduction that Robby had. You know, the guy who kicked his ass in juvie at the end of last season. Like his little brother ends up showing up because you're introduced to the little brother in a very strange, like you don't like, who is this kid? Like, why are we focusing on some random new character all of a sudden? It felt like it was a completely different show in that episode where we see him for the first time.
Yeah, it really took me out. I'm like, did I skip to a different Netflix show? I wasn't aware of it.
Exactly.
Did I hit the button? Because this why were we on a school bus? That's not Anthony, by the way.
Did I take a nap in the last episode? Because I've been watching 6 hours straight.
We got a new kid. He just, new kid. And then what is this kid and why do we care what his day is like? I don't. And then and I think at first, when it first says Cobra Kai, I thought it was a real flash. I had to go back to make sure it wasn't like a Daniel LaRusso flashback because I said LaRusso. And I'm just like, was this like, was it Daniel? Is that, it's his kid because it didn't look like his kid.
And here I was thinking it was like one of the board members or something when he was like a little child.
Right.
There was a whole there was the trailer with it's going to change the world. We're going to be so different on the board. And it was like, okay, this is how the board comes into the story. But no, it just ended up being present day.
That's funny. I did like Devin too. I thought Devin was a fun ad. I kind of wish we would have got more with her. She's the debate student that joins Eagle Fang.
Oh yeah.
So I would have liked a little bit more with her. I kind of liked how she threw it back at Johnny without blinking because he needs that, and he always respects that. So I like that.
I also think it's funny, like Hawk and I forget his name, but Glasses, like they get the hot girls. Like I think that's just hysterical.
Good for them.
I know.
Hey, it's a new world, man. Just because, when we were kids, nerds didn't do that, but now they do. Nerds have come a long way. Nerds united and rose up. Now it's the jocks that need to watch out, right?
That's the next reboot for Netflix is Revenge of the Nerds, but from the jocks' perspective.
Oh, God, that's a very problematic movie that I'm not going to get into right now. But there's a whole scene that I'm just like, you need to cut all of that out. I can't believe I thought that was cool in the 80s. All right. Now let's start with Eli Hawk. And I feel like, we should at some point just throw in that sound. Hawk!
Yeah.
Because every time that comes up, I laugh out loud. I just think that it's such a fun touch. They never abuse it. It's always just there randomly. And when he hits his peak or whatever. So I really dig that. What'd you think of Hawk's journey where he ends up the champion by the end? He starts off a little, I don't know who I am or where I fit. He loses his mohawk. That was really cruel, Robby. I like Robby, but that was really cruel. And he finds his mojo again. His dojo mojo.
Especially when he comes in the first episode or start of the second episode with the sledgehammer. And you're just like, oh, great, here we go. He's going to go bust that rock that's sitting in the backyard and just really do some damage. And then to find out that he's actually there to try to make a difference. I thought that was a really great character building moment. And, it's nice to see, young men actually understand the concept of you can't be angry, you can't be a bully, you have to actually put in the work and put in the effort. And Hawk is definitely doing the effort this season to try to be a better person and try to understand and try to right the wrongs of the past. And even though he loses the mohawk, he still understands that his power comes from within, not from his hair. He's not Samson.
His power comes from within, not his hair. I like that.
I could probably change it into some kind of Miyagi-Do statement, right?
Right.
Power not in hair, power in heart.
I did like the purple hue. I thought the purple hue I was kind of hoping even on the short hair that he would bring the purple hue back at the end, but didn't happen. Maybe next year.
He still has the badass tattoo. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And he's still a really good fighter. I as a actor, I find he's a very good fighter. He's very skilled. I think Robby's probably the best of the group. Tori I'd probably put number 2, and then Hawk's probably number 3 of the kids. They're probably all a little better than Machio too. Let's admit. Just kidding. All right. How about this Anthony LaRusso Payne dynamic? We kind of briefly talked about it, but that really gets a lot of screen time. Are you cool with that?
I think it's nice that we don't forget that LaRusso has a second child.
Like in the third season where they barely acknowledged he existed?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it comes back to his screen problem with the whole therapist scene with the sister, their sister-in-law, and able to decipher like, the parents, you're the ones that are basically ignoring the kid. And because you're letting the screen be the parent, and it talks to the exact parenting generation that we have today. I thought that was a really nice touch to kind of send a message, kind of subtly or not so subtly potentially.
See what happens when you ignore your kids.
Exactly. And so I thought that was great that we could finally get to, and Anthony comes to the realization on his own through the course of the whole thing. Like he understands that he needs to do better, and might need to be a little bit more interested in not necessarily the karate, but maybe the Miyagi concepts, and that he's not force fed that by Daniel again, because Daniel just kind of shoves Miyagi-Do in people's faces sometimes.
Yeah.
Versus like letting them come to the realization on their own. And I thought that was really great that Anthony wanted to do something with his dad once his dad basically Johnny'd his ass, right? In the bedroom.
He needed to. That spoiled ass kid. Oh my God. I was just waiting. Like at some point, I'm waiting for him to get his ass kicked. He had it coming. I hate to say that, but when you bully somebody that much, and then of course you created a bully in Kenny. Like this was a sweet kid, good kid. Just wanted to, I mean, we did a really good cowering face, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then he merged into this tough kind of bully by the end. You know, that's what he was molded into because of all this anger and hate that he had inside. And it just goes to show, I mean, bullying really does affect people. I always love that about the show, no matter what the season is that they take bullying very seriously. They don't just act like it's something you overcome. Like you shake it off and you're all good. Like it really stays with you. I mean, Johnny and Danny are both traumatized from what happened to them as kids.
And I think this is a really interesting fine line that they push here in this scene with Anthony and his dad. You know, when he does yell at him and he does break the iPad over his knee. I mean, as parents, we tend to lose our temper sometimes. And I know when we grew up, Aaron, mm-hmm. I'm sure there was a lot more, you know, corporal punishment, we'll call it. Paddles, belts, you know, things that are hitting. Even,
waterboarding. Yeah.
Waterboarding. Swirlies. I don't know.
Whatever you got to do.
There was definitely more of a heavy hand when we were growing up than there is today. And I know that we're wiser and we're smarter and we have like the child psychology. And I'm not saying that corporal punishment of your children is a good thing, but at some point there are times where you have to be stern. And I think trying to find the balance of, as a parent, when are you their friend? When are you their parent? And when you're their parent, when do you show love versus when do you show like I'm really disappointed in you, but you have to give the disappointment in a more stern way without lashing out in anger. So it's always, and I think that's really great in this because it's like, I think in that moment it works because Daniel is trying to show that you need to show respect and you need to have discipline and you need to do all the things in the Miyagi-Do way. But that fire, that Terry Silver, that thing that's burning inside of him when he smashes the iPad over his leg, that's where he loses control in the moment. And that could do damage to the child in that moment, right? Even though you're trying to put the fear of God in him, you're putting the fear of God in a different way, and it's not the right way.
Agreed. And I'll be honest, as a parent, I threw away many appliances, stuff that I bought my kids. And I'm like, if you're going to be a little asshole, then you don't have that. I don't care. And I think it's very important to be willing to part with whatever you give your kids. So don't give them really expensive electronics. So then it's easy to throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The sad part is that, you know, the Lego sets are really expensive too.
They really are. I just bought one for somebody for Christmas and I'm like, why is this $50? Why? That doesn't make sense. It's a Lego. But, you know, if the kid acts out, in the garbage. Or you can be a real jerk, throw away like 4 major pieces just so it tortures them when they're trying to put it together. That's the important part of parenting, making them suffer.
You're a sadistic SOB. I'm glad I'm not your kid.
All right, Sam, what did you think about Sam's arc this season, which she's still kind of dealing with the PTSD, but kind of turns it into, I don't want to say she turned into a bully, but she definitely started using aggression. She started using Danny's way as opposed to her dad's.
Yeah, I just don't like Sam at all. I've never liked Sam.
It's very, yeah, it's always tough to say you don't like a character, right? Because then people get affected. Why do you not like the character?
I just felt like she was the spoiled princess and then got her way and, ooh, I like this boy. Now I like this boy. And I'm going to put the boys against each other. And it's like, she's never really stood on her own. So I think from the character arc perspective this season, this is the first time where she's been her own character and not been a caricature of what was expected of her or what was the, you know, rich princess. I mean, she goes to see her friend, right, from the first and second season, and she drives up in the car, and you're like, I mean, come on, seriously, like, what Junior is driving around in a car like that? Unless you're one of those spoiled princesses, and that's what she is in this case. So,
oh man, every time she rolls up on somebody in that Mercedes, it's just like, I don't think that's the visual you want to project,
right?
You know,
Like even if you have money, like you're still buying a $5,000 to $7,000 beater for your kid's first car.
Yes, you should. And shame on them. Because honestly, with all the problems she's had and everything else, I don't think she needs a Mercedes.
Right.
Just make sure it works. Looks like crap, but works. And then get that kid going.
But this year, I think her arc is actually better. She's just not one of the better actors on the show, I would say. So I think it's hard to watch her sometimes, but I get where she's trying to go, right? She's trying to get over the PTSD. She's trying to understand her dad a little bit more. She's trying to understand Johnny's point of view a little bit more. In the end, she's just trying to find, like, how do I exist in a world? And then when her one person that's supposed to have her back, her mom, ends up betraying her by kind of friending Tori and helping Tori out. I mean, you could see how that, impacts her and really says, okay, well, no one's on my side because I can't learn from my dad. I can't learn from Johnny. I can't learn from my mom. I'm going to do things my own way. And I think the own way works for a short period of time until she realizes that, oh, when I'm on an island by myself, I don't have the support, and you need the support. And that's what she gets in the end when she says to both senseis, like, what should I do? And then it comes back around, which is good.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of struggled with the character to some degree through the seasons. I know in our season 3 Spoilercast, Amanda really is not a Sam fan either. For whatever the reasons. I mean, you have to go back and listen because I don't recall off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're very similar to what you said. There's a certain strength that has to be projected, I think, for certain moments of the character, and it doesn't always come through. And I'm not trying to knock the actress, but it's a fact. I feel it's a fact. But I think it came through better in this season than it has in seasons past. So I feel like her performance is getting better. Maybe it's, the learning, it's being part of a show consistently, and, you get the experience. I think experience always helps. So she's getting better and better, but it's always, I feel, to her disadvantage because I think Tori's so good at it. And we always like to use just the character names as opposed to just the actor when we're doing that. It just makes it easier to keep in mind who's who, except for obviously the two main guys. It's difficult, I think, for that character when Tori is so good at projecting aggression and frustration, and Sam is supposed to be kind of the goody little two shoes who snaps every now and again. And it's a much harder transition to make if you're not already selling it well. Does that make sense? Did that make sense with that?
It absolutely does. Like the whole jump the roof scene. Like, I think because Sam's the one that made the jump, like, it wasn't as believable if, say, had Dimitri made the jump.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Dimitri makes the jump. You're kind of like, oh, snap. Like, he's really taking a step. He's making a giant leap in his progression in the character.
There you go, dad joke. There you go.
Like, you're expecting Sam to do it. You're expecting Sam's going to clear it without a problem. And it just, the whole, like, cut away and then the cut back to the shoulder roll as you kind of land on the other side. I was like, oh my gosh. Like cool moment, but no.
That was probably the one where, as much as, I think everybody loves Johnny, they love the character and they love how he takes these crazy chances. The cement truck was one thing. Jumping from roof to roof does feel pretty stupid. There's nothing about that feels like a good plan. That just feels like you are begging for someone to die.
And I was waiting for them. I thought that was going to be the lesson. Like, eagles know when to strike and when not to strike.
Yeah, I was actually thought he was going to catch him right at the end. Like, he was going to run up and stop him from jumping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even Johnny's that crazy.
Well, apparently he is. But I thought that was an odd choice. She made it. God bless her. The mattresses. Yeah, that's what the mattresses are for. Try not to miss. What? This is not a good plan, man. They're not Spider-Man. Oh. But she made it, and, there we go. And she kept going back and forth and going at Tori over and over and over again, and kept, when she got to school, she basically took the wrong message from her old best friend, and applied it in the terrifying way, which is, I'm going to bully her. I'm going to get on the forefront of that. And that's getting the, offense, defense. We kept hearing that all season.
If you want to beat Cobra Kai in the All Valley, you gotta break yourself of this wait and see crap.
And how exactly are we gonna do that?
You're gonna jump from this roof to that one.
What? Are you crazy?
That building is like 5 nates away and we're at least 14 nates high.
Please don't use me as a system of measurement.
Quiet! If you want to be an eagle, first you gotta learn how to fly. And you can't do that unless you jump.
What if we fall?
That's what the mattresses are for.
And if we miss the mattresses?
Try not to. All right, who's first?
Meanwhile, Tori, will segue to Tori. Tori, once again, I feel like we get a more developed, like she is the Robby of the series. Like she's the one that's had a really troubled past and she's trying to, take care of her mother and she's trying to take care of her life. And she's just, she hasn't had everything handed to her like Mercedes girl over here. So it's a much steeper climb for her, but she's still fighting through it. So I think I can understand her aggression much easier, obviously. And also I just feel like the actress really delivers every time.
Yeah. And I think in this particular season, for her to come to the realization that she needs to ask for help, she asks Kreese for help, or Kreese kind of is like, hey, I can see something's wrong with you. So Kreese kind of pokes a little bit. And then Kreese does what Kreese does with Mrs. LaRusso in the grocery store with the bite of the apple. An actual apple, not her apple.
Wow. What just happened? Jesus. We all understood that did not need clarification.
And then the fact that Tori shows up on the front door of the place that she broke into and trashed and says, hey, I need your help, Mrs. LaRusso. I think that's a really great character movement for Tori's character, because the first time we see Tori, it may be a little bit over the top. You're like, why is Peyton List here? Like, she just doesn't fit in. She's like more of a, you don't want to say like an A actor, but compared to everybody else in the cast, like she's been in stuff. So she's an actor level above everybody else in a way.
In many respects. Yeah.
So it's just like, she just doesn't fit it. Now she feels like she fits in. Like she feels like Robby of season 1, like you were saying, where there's this journey she's going on. She's trying to figure it out. And the fact that her and Robby are the ones that end up, going to the fairgrounds after the prom.
Oh, humping in the car. We agree they humped, right?
I was trying to avoid it because you yelled at me for the other one. So,
well, that one was in the show.
That one's on you.
That one was in the show. She hopped on board. So yeah, I think there was some.
There's a dad joke for you.
Bazinga.
No, I mean, I thought like it was the two of them really have some good chemistry together. The whole dance sequence.
I agree. I like them together.
It was like, okay, there's tension here. Like this could be interesting.
And I think that same episode was probably some of the issues with Sam, where I don't think she sold the jealousy as well. She just looked like kind of princessy, but that is kind of her character. She's kind of spoiled and whatnot. Where Miguel looked legitimately hurt in a way, like he was upset, but he also understood. I mean, I just think he's a good actor.
Miguel also needed a haircut this season, or maybe borrow a ponytail from Terry.
Let the kid grow his hair out if he wants, man. I mean, hell, half the kids are losing their hair. They're getting it cut off, which, hey, good segue to Robby. So what do you think of Robby's arc? Because by the end, we do finally get that reuniting with his dad. You get him trying to mentor Kenny, which backfired, and Kenny, ended up, instead of learning karate for good reasons, learned the Cobra Kai way, which is bully the crap out of people. And also, Robby tortured Hawk. That to me felt completely out of character for Robby. Do we agree?
Especially where this character was going for the season, right?
Exactly. I feel like that's a horrible segue from who the character was and its path.
Yeah, like I could see one of the other people on. I
could see Tori doing it. No problem.
I think the problem is that with the season and the arcs that Tori and Robby were on, I think for Tori and Robby to do it, I think is the wrong person. I think it's the other guy, like the third in command. Kyler would have been the one that should have come in and done the deed rather than Robby or Tori, because Robby and Tori have already been the bullies.
Absolutely.
And I think that they're on a redemption arc this season. So I think if Kyler would have done it, I think it would have been more believable.
Yeah.
And then Robby and Tori could have had a conversation with Kyler because of it. And I think that would have helped with the character growth of Rob, especially Robby. Because I think the problem with Robby this year was that he was all over the map. Like, oh, Cobra Kai, I'm going to be your sensei. And then, oh, but Kenny, here's the things you need to do kind of the Miyagi way in order to like not get bullied at school. And I'm going to be your big brother, but here's the Cobra Kai way. And I'm going to go cut off, Hawk's hair. But, oh, hey, Kenny, don't do that. And,
yes.
It was very flip floppy for Robby this year. And then of course they end up with Johnny at the end. Like there's no like reason for him to be with Johnny in the end other than it was just a forced thing to happen. So
Yeah.
I didn't buy his arc this year.
Yeah. The only thing I can say is he saw how it affected Kenny. And that's what drove him to Johnny. I mean, it kind of works, but it does feel really forced for that moment because there's no reason that it should exist. That there's no natural, organic reason that that moment should exist. There was nothing really that drove Robby into Johnny's arms and why he would follow him. But I guess, I mean, he was tired. I think if you've had struggles, I mean, you get to a point where you just, okay, you know what? I tried to help Kenny. It failed. I'm tired of this fight. I just want to forgive. I can see that probably, but the whole cutting the mohawk thing, that really took me out of his character for a bit. Cause I'm like, that doesn't feel like Robby's character in this season, or honestly, since the first season. It just felt like such a backtrack to me. I really, really, really did not like that he was part of it.
Yeah. And then the kick to the head on Kenny specifically, like, I think that was probably a little bit more aggressive than it needed to happen. Like you could still win the point without having to go all, sweep the leg, Johnny Violent kind of thing. But I mean, I suppose blood is blood, right?
Sure. But we did get the moment. And I think everybody that watches the show did want that. They wanted Johnny and Robby to have a moment. I wish it would have been a little bit more genuine and, based on something that Johnny did to earn it. I think that's what my problem is. I wanted Johnny to earn it, and I don't think he did anything to earn that moment. So there we go. Because he has been kind of a crappy dad. And, he told Miguel he loved him, but he didn't. We're going to segue to Miguel. He told him, I love you, Robby. Oh, that had to be heartbreaking. So
I think Miguel sold that. I think he did a really great job acting that scene. He was trying to hold back the tears. And
of the kids, he's my favorite. Favorite. Kyler, probably my least favorite because he's so over the top, but definitely Miguel. I love what Miguel's performances always are because I feel like he brings nuance, which is sorely lacking in the younger portion of I think Tori has it, Miguel has it. Those are my two top of the kids. So what do you think of Miguel's arc? They're not really kids. They're like 20 something.
Arc was really good. I think it was very balanced. I thought, the progression, she's trying to understand Eagle Fang and his loyalties to Johnny. At the same time, he's like, I am dating Sam, so I need to get on Mr. LaRusso's good side because he's the future father-in-law kind of concept. And so that gets played up a little bit during the course of the season. Miguel's really trying to look out for his mom and then, working on the car. And so he still has that part of it. So everything that happens this season to Miguel, I think is very much in line with the character that we've seen over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I think where Miguel fell short was the birds and bees and the I'm dating your mom conversation. That was a little bit more awkward.
I like that. I like that a lot. It was way better than I was expecting. I didn't want anger or angst or anything. I felt like this kid is so much more mature than you, Johnny. Like he is so much more mature than you. And I think it's fascinating. I think that's a great dynamic to where he's the adult in the room.
But he's the adult in the room and then he becomes the kid in the room again.
A little.
He's like, I thought this was going to work, but I can't deal with this. I can't have dinner with you people.
That was really annoying. That was such a turnabout. That was almost Robby with a mohawk to me. I'm just like, wait, what happened? He was so great earlier. Now he's going to throw a tantrum. Oh my God.
Plus, and this is probably the one nitpick I have in the entire series or the season. I really didn't. I liked the fact that Miguel chose for Miguel and didn't choose for Johnny to not come back out and take on the fight. At the same time, you had this whole thing about, well, Johnny's my sensei, but I'm also learning from Daniel LaRusso. And here he's got this back injury, but it's not like a broken back and he could come back from it. It's just like a muscle spasm. And I'm like, why isn't Daniel coming in here and doing the hand smack rub thing? like this is the total throwback moment right here where you could basically do the whole, hands on him and do whatever Mr. Miyagi magic there was. And then he comes back out on the mat and at least loses, standing up and actually fighting versus just backing out.
Yeah. If he started doing wax on, wax off or whatever.
Isn't that what you're thinking the whole time? Like, oh, it's just a tweaky back. And I'm like, Daniel's going to come do the hand magic thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're
a little bit.
it.
That's fair.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that we expected it and it didn't happen was the thing that meant, oh, this is a completely different show. Like we're moving into our own thing now versus bringing up things from the past.
I tell you what, I really love the moment where he goes to do the kick and then, he gets the reaction in his back because I almost feel like that could have been, worse. It could have been worse, and it should have been a shock to the system. And Johnny right there, that's where, if you say you're gonna be a father figure, that's the dad moment right there. Because no way would I let a kid go back out there after that. He almost was paralyzed. He's came back from that. Now he hurt his back. No, that kid is not going back out there. I don't care what's at stake. I just don't care. And he did the wrong thing, and that's why Miguel left. So it's all on Johnny, which that's not really against Johnny's character. Johnny's kind of like that dumb. And then immature. Immature is the word I should use.
When he goes to do the tornado kick, I think you completely forgot that he was paralyzed at the end of season 2 and working through that in season 3. So that when he does go do the kick and then the back gives out, you're kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
You think he forgot? I don't see how he could forget. We might have forgotten.
We forgot as the audience.
Yeah. I don't think the character Miguel is going to forget that he was paralyzed a couple months back or years back or whatever it was.
Well, no, because it's like you're so used to the whole thing. It's like, okay, when's the crane kick going to come? When's the crane kick going to come? When's the whole drum twisty waist move going to come? Right? In the second movie, there's always like, what's the big move? And you're like, when are we going to see the tornado kick? When are we going to see? And then when you see the tornado kick, you're expecting the tornado kick to land. And then when it doesn't, you're kind of like, oh, snap. Like, yeah, that's right. He has a broken back.
Well, we are waiting for that final move, right? Like the one that Shozen gave Daniel-san in Okinawa.
Yeah, the one that Anthony was looking at in the box.
Anthony was looking at. We're definitely waiting. Like that feels like we're holding this until the series finale. This is our big moment right here. This is our new crane kick. And they're still probably secretly trying to figure out what that move's going to be. Like, we got to come up with something badass, man. And I was kind of mad that the flying tornado didn't get a little bit more presence. I feel like it was kind of wasted. It was whiffed.
Well, because it gave it its presence when it gave it to Miguel, because Miguel went to go do the move. And so the whole slow motion drama as he's twisting through the air, I mean, it's all there.
I guess that's true, yeah.
So when Sam goes and does it, it's like you can't do that again. That's just kind of cheesy then.
Yeah, it's not as badass, that's for sure. All right, speaking of badass, we're going to segue to Kreese, John Kreese, who got quite the flashbacks last year where we learned that he basically murdered a man. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for him because Terry Silver, set him up for beating up Stingray. Character I don't like anyway. So to me, win-win, brother. What you say about Kreese's arc this season? I felt like I was kind of happy we had the balance to kind of get away from Kreese's constant nihilism. But where were you with Kreese?
I really enjoyed the Kreese journey this year, to be quite honest. The whole starting out like Cobra Kai is always in your blood. Karate never leaves. Working with Robby and trying to get him to see the ways of the snake, of the cobra. I loved all of it. And then by the end, where he's just like, when he's yelling at Johnny, and then Johnny gets beat up in the dojo by Terry, like Kreese finally realizes it's like, oh hey, like I did treat Johnny as the son. Johnny was going to be the heir apparent. I wasn't as good of a dad to Johnny as Johnny probably needed. And that's why he decides to change his tune a little bit, and why he tells Tori, it's like, you earn this, you need to earn this yourself. You fight the way you want to fight. And then he has that moment, and it's just, I really liked the Kreese journey.
It fit the show. The
question will become, does that journey stick, or does that go back to vengeance because of what Terry does to him in the end?
I mean, here's my mindset. It's hard for me to be completely empathetic because we did see the guy kill his captain, when he was mad at him. He stomped on his hands and into the snake pit. Yeah, the irony. But on the same token, he's also basically stolen Cobra Kai from Johnny. He's, even though Johnny was trying to give him another chance, he completely screwed him over. I get that he does have a weakness for Johnny, and I think that does fit the character. On the same token, it's super hard to be empathetic to Kreese when he's kind of been played as the mustache twirling guy for a big portion of the series, even though he has had moments of forgiveness and weakness for Johnny. Like, he was definitely trying to bring him back to the Joe, and he kept saying like, hey, you can come back anytime. You just got to get back on board. Just got to get back on board with what Cobra Kai stands for, man. You're welcome back. But he still stole it from him. So I have a hard time feeling too bad for the guy. I'm like, you got what's coming to you, as far as I'm concerned.
But I think that's what we've always said, is that when you have a villain, you have to play the villain in such a way that the villain believes that they're actually the good guy.
Absolutely.
And if the audience starts to feel empathetic for the villain, I think you got a really great villain. And I think that's what happened with Kreese this year. I think people are like, oh, Kreese is just damaged like Johnny. Like, if I can cheer for Johnny, I can cheer for Kreese in some way. I'll be small, but it's there. There's a sliver of hope.
There's a sliver of hope. One little sliver. Now we get to Terry Silver. Oh, my God.
I was trying to get that silver.
Yep, that was well placed. Well placed. Nice segue. So, and I'm going to say his name because I was a fan of him in the 90s. Thomas Ian Griffith. I really was a big fan of his. I was hoping he was going to take the next step to be the next martial artist. It didn't work out. He ended up, kind of retiring from acting. Well, he's back. And I will say, in the Karate Kid 3, though, Terry Silver was annoying as hell. It was so over the top. It was so ridiculous. It was cackling was too bad. Like, I like the actor and what he did after that movie. I don't necessarily like what he did in that particular movie. So I like here, it's dialed down quite a bit. And I do like his whole arc because he starts off like, no, I'm not going to help you. I don't want any part of this. And he kind of has to find his way back. And then, he really does recognize that Kreese is weak and really goes at, like, he's much more manipulative, I think, and good at it than Kreese is, in my opinion. And so I really like that we have a formidable villain in the series, and also one who doesn't need a stunt double, because as much as I love all these guys, a lot of the older generation, you can always tell when they're having a fight scene. Zabka doesn't need a stunt double. That seems pretty obvious. Machio and Martin Kove, they definitely need stunt doubles. So whenever they're having a fight, you can always tell. We're not going to see their face. You can see Terry Silver's face in all his fights. And when he fights Johnny, it looks like, even though Johnny says, I'm going to kick your ass back to the nursing home, great line, or whatever he said to that extent, that's a good fight, because I feel like this guy is towering over everyone. He's an actual martial artist. Yes, he could kick your ass, even at his age. And I loved having him in the show. I thought he really gave a nice little juice to this series. Really kind of gave me somebody to like, yeah, I love a villain I can love to hate. You know what I mean?
And I think it's interesting when you look at the juxtaposition of Kreese versus Terry, and you have this, like we were talking about, like the geeks are cool now. So here you got Kreese, alpha jock male, army dude. And you got Terry, who has become this business person, Zen yoga nerd, geek kind of persona. And just the brains that he has are able to outwit the brawn in this particular moment. Kind of like Daniel was the brains and Johnny was the brawn. You get that thematic element that kind of moves its way through the course of this new iteration of the Karate Kid saga. And I think that's really brilliant when you think about it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. I mean, I know that they've already filmed season 5 and the actors already teasing that season 5 is even better. I really feel like that's very possible, because I think Silver could escalate the villain game. And now you've got this really cool, like, I always felt Cobra Kai was going to win at the end, because it's just, they've said, the showrunners have said they envisioned a 6-season series, right? So I feel like you got to do something to up the game. And I knew that they were going to win. I had no concept that they were going to do like an expansion project. And I liked that addition to it, that Terry Silver is going to throw his money into building all these dojos around the area. Like he's basically creating an empire of Cobra Kai. I love that, because now you guys screwed this up because you couldn't work together. What are you going to do to bring down an empire?
I mean, LaRusso does have his own empire. You just drive cars into all the buildings.
Gee, that's your solution. All right, kids, everybody lines up. We're going to Fast and Furious this. Take that building down at 3 a.m. This one at 4:15. Just coordinate attacks. I like it.
There's also something that's really interesting when you think about, I think there was a saying, I can't remember who said it, but basically, if you have the nicest person in the world, right? If you push the nice person too far, they're actually more horrific and damaging than the angry person would be 24/7. So, and I think that's kind of what you're seeing here, a little bit on the Daniel LaRusso side, a little bit on the Terry Silver side, where you have like, not that Terry's like a great guy, but he's at least become more zen. So it's like when you push somebody too far, you actually get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Daniel experienced that, obviously, like when he broke the iPad over his knee, like he started to see the Eagle Fang way in a bit. And so if you push him too far, Daniel has that temper. He has that hot-headedness in him. The question is how much can you control it?
Today's lesson is simple. catch a fish. But since I know you Eagle Fangs like a little bit of competition, we're gonna make it interesting. So the first to succeed will have the honor of leading class all week. And you also get to pick out what flavor Gatorade I buy next.
Oh, hell yeah! Hope you all like Glacial Freeze.
Great, where are the rods?
Back in my garage. Your bare hands are all you use and all you need. On your mark, get set, go! Looks like you're a little wet behind the ears.
Well, let's go there. Let's go to Daniel. What'd you think of Daniel's arc this season? And especially, I know you were really excited to see Shosen's back.
I didn't even know Chosen was going to be back.
Is it Chosen
Like,
or
that was the thing.
Chosen, right? It's Chosen, not Chosen.
Honk. We'll just call him Honk.
We'll call it Honk. But you love that. You love that he came back at the end.
I really, people love the first movie, and the first movie I think is, I wouldn't say it's like we always talk about Back to the Future is like the perfect movie. Like The Karate Kid is pretty close to a perfect movie too. But I really like the second one. I love the history of karate.
Mm-hmm.
I like the
romanticism,
Okinawa way, the simpler life, the honor and the loyalty and all of the stuff that Japanese culture stands for. And so to have the characters from the second movie be so prominent now in this series, I think that's really, really something special, because this is a guy who, Daniel fought with, had struggles with. And when Daniel won fair and square and won his honor, now you have to pay that debt. So you get Terry trying to pay his debt to Kreese for Kreese saving his life in Nam. Now you got, Chosen coming back and paying his debt to Daniel.
Yeah, and I feel like Daniel especially, well, Daniel and Johnny, they both have this extreme stubbornness, right? This extreme refusal to believe that there's any possibility because of their childhood traumas for whatever their reasons. Like Cobra Kai benefited Johnny Lawrence for most of his life, and Miyagi-Do saved Daniel-san for most of his life. So they both look at it very, very affectionately. And I think a lot of us do, right? If something really affected us or helped us in our childhood, we have a hard time getting past that is the only way. And it's part of just growing up believing that. And Daniel is got stuck in that moment where he firmly believes his way is the only way. So he is too stubborn. They both do this, not just one or the other. But he's too stubborn to accept Johnny's teachings at all or even try to work with him. And that continues throughout the entire season. And it shows that even with his kids, like he can't approach his kids in a different way to let them be their own person up until the end. He really struggles with that because he just thinks everything should be the way that I was taught and the way that I'm teaching you. Why do you want to do it a different way? And I like that element because especially with parenting, it's nice to be reminded that, you know what, your way is not the only way. Sometimes you need to evolve as well with your kids so you understand that there are different, newer ways to do things. Like you talked about paddling earlier. Paddling isn't very well appreciated these days. Spanking maybe still some, but paddling, no, nobody does it. Nobody takes a belt off anymore. That would be child abuse. Like the world evolves. You need to catch up to it. And I like that both of these characters struggle with that. And Daniel as a parent really struggles with it through this season.
Yeah. And I think that one thing we kind of forget about is that both Daniel and Johnny grew up without dads. So they relied on their senseis to be the fathers that they never had growing up as children. And so now that they're both dads themselves, trying to understand, well, how do I be a dad? Clearly with the Anthony arc this season, like, how do I be a dad when I never had that dad role model? Yeah. Like, it's one thing to be a karate sensei. It's another thing to be a loving sensei.
Oh, and speaking of loving, we'll segue to Johnny. Johnny has another arc where he screws some stuff up. Per usual, he's had such a hard time just doing it right. But he gets frustrated and he ends up back at some abandoned warehouse or whatever the hell it is, teaching kids there by the end of the season. And Eagle Fang is still a thing. And I love how he keeps trying to incorporate similar Cobra Kai isms, but making them Eagle Fang isms. And I think that's great how he keeps doing that. Like there's so much of that, the claws and what an eagle does. And then Dimitri corrects him that eagles don't do that. He keeps moving forward anyway. He just doesn't care because it sounds cooler. his obsession with the 80s and Miguel's mom. And just, I think he had a really good arc this season. And, well, no, I'll save my favorite moment for in a second, but I really like Johnny's arc. And I like that he's going to go off and find Miguel and hopefully get this whole emotional feeling that he has and realize that you can love both kids. You can love Robby and Miguel. It's okay. They don't have to be blood either.
And I also like how he didn't have any challenges with his love life, right? Like they
didn't break
are still
up
together at the end, right? Yep. They never broke up. There wasn't like all that. Like it just was like Johnny can have a girlfriend. It's fine. Like let him keep his girlfriend. So I'm glad that they didn't go there this season. But yeah, I thought Johnny was very well rounded this season. I really liked watching him do all the Miyagi tactics and stuff, and it just felt centered, and it just everything about Johnny this season felt really, really great. Like Billy's really knocking it out of the park.
Absolutely. And do you feel like
he's overshadowing Daniel LaRusso in a little bit?
I think
overshadowing Ralph.
I know in the fan community he probably is, and I'm sure Macho doesn't love that because he kind of has the more vanilla character. That's just the character, and Johnny gets to say all the stuff people want to say but can't. And so it makes him a lot more easy to relate to in some ways, so I don't know if Johnny is necessarily the better character or if he's just less vanilla and just more down to earth, but he's definitely the fan favorite, I would say. I mean, I think more people watch for Johnny Lawrence than they do Daniel LaRusso.
Especially the newer generation that's just coming into this.
Yeah. I mean, and what was the moment where, he's looking for a female recruit and he does a perfect dose of feminism, and I'm just like, what?
Oh, that was so great in the gymnastics facility.
Yeah, it's just like he's learned. Oh my God, he's learned. It was a great moment. It was
he's wake,
just great,
right? No, it's woke. You're woke.
Yep. But I also, on the same token, I kind of like that they gave Daniel moments where he could lose his temper. Like when he breaks the iPad, I thought that was a great moment. I'm like, there we go. Let Machio do his thing. And I love the My Cousin Vinny joke where she's Marissa Tomei Light, their cousin or whatever. I thought that was a really nice touch to the whole episode. If you didn't catch that, it was great because he was in My Cousin Vinny, in case you didn't remember. Right. So both of these characters had some really great moments. Johnny just gets some of the best lines because he gets to say stuff that most of us wish we could say, but we know we can't because it's offensive. And we just get to giggle that he says it. He wish I could say that. Now we're going to talk a little bit about teachings from Cobra Kai. Like highlights. So, moment of truth. Troy, explain the moment of truth.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the Marissa Tomei, My Cousin Vinny Easter egg, because this is where the moment of truth was also an Easter egg. If you know the moment of truth, which you might not, is actually the song that's actually in the closing credits of the original Karate Kid movie, 1984. There were like 3 prominent songs in there, right? The moment of truth, the one that you hear on the date scene, and then there's obviously You're the Best. And what's interesting about, before we get to Moment of Truth, You're the Best specifically was actually written for Rocky 3 originally, and then never was used in Rocky 3. So that's how it made its way into the Karate Kid, because the composer actually worked on both movies. And if you remember in the first episode, or those of you that haven't seen it or listening to this first, but in the first episode, there's like a little monologue between Miguel and Johnny outside Johnny's door, and Miguel makes a reference to Rocky 3. So the fact that that reference was there, plus you have You're the Best was from Rocky 3, I thought that was really a cool nod and a cool Easter egg that the people that are true fans of the series would pick up on.
You're the best.
The moment of truth
around.
Specifically, the song that was in the original closing credits of the original movie, 2 things kind of happen here that's kind of really cool, is that there's like a 3-note sequence. There's the da-da-da, that you get in the You're the Best around, that same 3-note sequence. That 3-note sequence is the 3 notes that lead into the chorus of the moment of truth. So if the moment of truth hadn't been used as the closing credit sequence, that 3-note motif is actually what's called Daniel's theme in the original movie. So you can hear in a lot of places that 3-note motif through the entire orchestral arc as they compose the other songs, as they travel across from Jersey to California. You hear the 3-note sequence in there. Anytime Daniel's on screen, you obviously hear the 3-note sequence, right? When he's doing the crane kick, you hear the 3-note sequence by the ocean side. So the fact that they actually bring the moment of truth into this season where Carrie Underwood comes to the All Valley tournament, a little weird that it was Carrie Underwood. I don't understand why they grabbed Carrie Underwood of all people, because it felt a little bit out of place. But Carrie Underwood actually
save that one
sings
guy's
the
job.
moment.
Save that one guy's job. That's why.
Weird arc. But Carrie Underwood sings the moment of truth during the All Valley tournament. And so it was great to actually get the moment of truth to be not in the credits, but actually in the quote unquote movie. And then because you get that nice connection back to the original, tie in to the original movie with the original All Valley tournament. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Fun facts. Well, my teaching from this entire season was no be there. No be there.
Greatest. I think that was the greatest sequence I laughed so hard.
I laughed so hard. Both times that she was in that episode was the hardest. The first time was I laughed so freaking hard. Probably the hardest I've laughed in the entire series. I agree with you. Because I'm just, when he says no be there, and then he's like, he gives you all his storied culture's teachings, and you can't even teach him proper English. And you never thought to teach him proper English? I was in tears. And then at the end, when he just leaves from the fight and he comes back, he's like, where were you? He's like, no be there. Oh, God. Tears. Both times. So you felt the same.
Oh yeah, like the whole hockey sequence. I thought the hockey sequence was brilliant. I was just like,
loved it.
He's like, Daniel's like busting it, like wow, where is Johnny? And Johnny's like got a Slurpee or whatever, a soda, and he's like, no, be there. I was like, oh my gosh, like, applaud, brilliant. I had to pause. I had to pause the TV. I was laughing so hard.
I was laughing so hard. I'm like, oh, what a payback. What a throwback to an earlier moment in the show. I mean, like, God, that was just perfect. Absolutely perfect. The best life lesson of 2021. That's what I'm going with. That's what no be there was.
For sure.
So, I mean, overall, this story of the entire series really is about the traumas of bullying. Would you agree with that, or do you see this series differently?
No, I think it's still about bullying. I mean, Robby was kind of bullied. Miguel was kind of bullied. Tori is bullied. Sam was bullied. Now you got Anthony and Kenny being bullied. Hawk was bullied, by getting his hair cut off. I mean, it's always been about, bullying is not the way to go. And there's a different way to handle any kind of situation. Even if you have like someone that's just constantly talking about you behind your back and just sharing stuff, it's like, you can either choose to go on the offensive and fight back and try to prove your point, or you can be the bigger person and just either A, ignore, or B, come with kindness and figure out a different way where you get so under their skin where they just can't even bother doing it anymore because they just give up because they're not getting to you.
Yeah, that's about how I feel. I kind of like how they continue to build kind of moral lessons into the show, which is really nice, and make it a very easy breezy show that you can just enjoy with your family or your friends or whatever, but also, really kind of incorporates the idea that this is what bullying does to people. Like, it really messes you up. Being mean to other people is cruel, and it directly affects how cruel they can become, or how angry they can become, or what their aggression levels can become. It really affects how people are mentally as well as physically. So yeah, I mean, I just love that they take the time to actually incorporate those lessons, even while they're still telling, great jokes and having some fun fight scenes and some good character building and some great moments of television. They also remember that their overall message, the overall theme is, don't be a bully. Don't be a dick. Put that on a poster. Cobra Kai Season 5. Don't be a dick. So when Cobra Kai dojos are popping up around the valley, Honk is back to help Danny. Johnny's off to Mexico to get Miguel. Where do you want the story to go in Season 5? Last question. Where do you want the story to go?
Yeah, I want the story to stand alone. I don't want to have to rely on any of the previous movies. I really hope Hilary Swank doesn't come into the picture at all.
She's a 2-time Oscar winner. That can't be bad. They're connected, but they're not really connected.
Right.
You want Jaden Smith to show up?
I don't know where I want the story to go at this point, other than I'm glad that it's going to be its own thing. Like, they're finally at a point where it stands on its own legs. The characters are developed enough that you can really go any direction whatsoever. I would think that if anything, you might get like a Karate Kid Season 2 where they go to Japan. Maybe there's like some giant karate tournament down in Mexico. That would be interesting. I'm excited to find out the situation between Miguel and his dad, where his dad doesn't even know Miguel exists. So you have that dad theme still kind of weaving its way through the course of the series. So that'll be interesting. Love to see Tori and Sam potentially actually work together. Kind of like Johnny and Daniel had to work together because she feels bad that Sam actually won and she didn't actually win the trophy fair and square. Or maybe they have some kind of like side duel or whatever to truly settle it once and for all, like who's the best between the two of them. And I'd like to see Johnny and Robby actually do some, team up kind of investigation. Maybe they go on the road together to go find Miguel and Robby helps him out.
Oh, that would be interesting. Okay, I like all your ideas. What I really want is by the end of season 5, because if they still hold that season 6 theory, which I think they will, I mean, it's a huge hit for Netflix, so hopefully they'll get to season 6. I would love to have the Cobra Kai dojos in the county or whatever, like basically attack Miyagi, like have an all-out fight like we've had at the school, but this time all the students together, like they are training together. They finally are smart enough to come together and train, and the schools attack the dojo in the finale kind of thing. Because I don't want another tournament yet. We've had 2 tournaments. Let's take a break from tournaments. I want to see them converge on the dojo because now Terry Silver's in it and he's like he's going to go for it. He's just going to take him out. I think that would be
you almost have to attack the essence of Miyagi-Do.
Yep.
Like you break Miyagi-Do down to the point where Miyagi-Do barely exists so that it can rise from the ashes and do that super badass move in the final 6th season.
Yeah, because you can't break Eagle Fang down. I mean, they're basically in an abandoned warehouse. So how much further can they go? But you could tear Miyagi's dojo up. And, not that I want it damaged. Obviously, they'll rebuild it. But I think that would be a way to end the season on just like, oh, man, I can't wait for season 6. And they're going to kick all of their asses, or something like that. And plus you could have an all-out brawl. And I kind of like those big fights they have at the end of seasons when they do them.
Plus, it gives Shozen a way to be that mentor to Daniel again.
Yes.
Like, hey, this is the stuff of Miyagi that you don't know. Like, Miyagi-Do isn't about a place. It isn't about the teachings. It's about strength from within. Strength of character, strength of purpose, strength of... I'm just making up strength things, so just keep going and talking.
They destroy all of Miyagi-Do. The only thing that remains is that scroll with the final move.
Right.
That's got to live.
And what's inside of you.
What's that?
And what's inside of you. The Miyagi-Do, that teachings and principles. And
all that hokey nonsense. Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We'll go with that. But also the scroll, because I want to see what that move is. And hopefully they're trying
Material
to... Material
thing, not important. What important is inside.
Well, okay. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, Trey, for joining me for this. Share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group. We're on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our site is thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Email, once again, if you want to say something to Troy, feedback @thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Please rate and subscribe on your preferred podcast app. You can always find Troy at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter and me at Aaron Smirks. Both of us are on the Blacklist Exposed, Beyond Westworld, and here at The Hollywood Outsider. We'll be back with a new episode on January 12th for our annual Ho Awards, and then January 19th for our annual look at the best TV and movies coming out in 2022, because we're taking kind of a break, but we wanted to talk about Cobra Kai. Anything you want to say as we head out?
Make sure you also check out our new podcast, The Hollywood Outsider Presents Bad Movie Night, now in your feeds as well. So make sure you subscribe to that, because if this isn't enough talking, you can hear us talk twice as much.
There you go. And remember, the next time you head to a theater or stream comfortably from your couch, buy popcorn. Always remember, no be there.